Mean from OGD. It's our pleasure to introduce Dr. Elon Murphy, who's the Deputy Director for Clinical and Regulatory Affairs in OGD since January 2020. Dr. Murphy began her career in FDA in 2007, joining CDER's Office of New Drugs, Division of Gastroenterology and Inborn Errors of Metabolism Products as a medical officer. In 2011, Dr. Murphy transitioned to the newly developed Center for Tobacco Products, serving in various leadership roles within the Office of Science until she returned to CDER in 2020. Our next presentation consists of 4 speakers, and it's on the ANDA program public stats and what they mean for the Office of Regulatory Operations. Our first of 4 presenters is Ted Sherwood. He's been with the Director of the Office of Regulatory Operations within OGD since 2014. ORO consists of 3 divisions: Division of Project Management, Division of Filing Review, and Division of Labeling Review. Previously, he served as the Associate Director of Immediate Office Operations, Office of Pharmaceutical Sciences, now called the Office of Pharmaceutical Quality. Prior to joining OPQ in 1999, Ted spent a dozen years in OGD. Our second presenter in this session is Dr. Russell Storms, who is the Associate Director for Analytics in the Office of Regulatory Operations and OGD. Russell is responsible for the timely and accurate management of all data calls, reporting, and analytics within OGD in support of GDUFA. Our third presenter, Captain David Holovac, is a pharmacist and data analyst in the Office of Regulatory Operations in OGD. Captain Holovac has worked with OGD for the majority of his career as both a commissioned officer and a civilian. He has supported a multitude of information technology functions and programs and established, programmed, and managed OGD's first information server. He supports IT efforts in OGD and develops and analyzes OGD metrics and reports related to GDUFA. Our final presenter in this session is Robert Berger, who's worked with the analytics team since 2018, developing reports and documentation and improving data quality. Bob's prior data experiences includes 4 years in data quality management team in CDER's Office of Business Informatics, where he analyzed and repaired data problems in CDER's document archiving, reporting, and regulatory tracking system, also called DARTS, and documented DQMT's processes. Following our group of 4 presenters, the next presentation is on ANDA program public stats and what they mean from the Office of Generic Drug Policy. Our presenter, Lieutenant Commander Andrew Coogan, is a member of the Patent and Exclusivity Team, also called PET, in the Office of Generic Drug Policy. He joined FDA in 2014 as a Regulatory Project Manager and has been a member of the PET since 2018. Our next presenter is also on the ANDA program public stats and what they mean from the Office of Lifecycle Drug Products. Our presenter is Dr. Derek Smith. He joined FDA in 2020 and has served as a compliance officer, CMC assessor, quality assessment lead, branch chief, and division director prior to his current role. Derek is the Associate Director of Regulatory Affairs for the Office of Pharmaceutical Manufacturing Assessment within OPQ. He also serves as the co-chair for the New Inspection Protocol Project Initiative for pre-approval inspections and is also a member of the Knowledge Aided Assessment and Structured Application, also known as CASA, Initiative Steering Committee. Please join me in welcoming our first presenter in this section, Dr. Murphy.
Thank you for the introduction. It's my pleasure to kick off this session Overview, Generic Drug Program, Annual Statistics. For this presentation, I have 3 learning objectives. Recognize the value of generic drug cost savings for the U.S. public. Summarize U.S. FDA generic drug program highlights. Describe a complex generic drug product. So what is the value of generic drugs in terms of cost savings? Generic medications saved Americans $338 billion in 2020. Currently, 90% of prescriptions dispensed in the U.S. are generics. And 92% of generic prescriptions were filled at a cost of $20 or less, with the average generic copay in 2019 being $6.97, as compared to the average brand name copay in 2019 that was $56.32. I'm very excited to showcase the generic program highlights. Hundreds of generic drug applications were approved or tentatively approved in the last year, including many first generics, and we also prioritize applications to support pandemic-related conditions. As noted, we have extensive communications and collaborations with stakeholders to streamline generic drug development and review approval through various methods such as meetings, issuance of letters and guidances, as well as availability of workshops or webinars. First generic drugs provide access to needed therapies that treat a wide range of medical conditions where no competition previously existed. Because of their importance to public health, FDA prioritizes review of submissions for these products. And in 2021, OGD approved 93 first generic drugs. This list highlights just a few among those. More specifically, I want to talk about how in August 2021, FDA approved the first generic of a popular drug, Chantix, used to help people quit smoking. Availability of generic varenicline was approved well ahead of the review goal date, which could help mitigate the current shortage of this drug. And in the following month, FDA approved the first generic of Tradjenta tablets, which is used to control high blood sugar for patients with type 2 diabetes. Andrew Coogan will dive into more detail about competitive generic therapies later this session. I'll just state that having reached approval of the 100th ANDA with CGT designation in 2021, it's a sign the program is achieving what was hoped, spurring both the development and market availability of safe and effective generic drugs in areas of the market that previously had little to no competition, giving patients more affordable access to medicines. We're also making efforts to modernize our information infrastructure. In conjunction with FDA's Office of Information Technology and CDER's Center IT Liaison Office, we rolled out new information technology platforms to support multiple ways for internal collaboration and communications, as well as new productivity and cybersecurity tools that support advancements in drug safety priorities and drug supply chains. In June of last year, Office of Generic Drugs completed a pilot initiative to implement a bioequivalence assessment tool in the in vivo pharmacokinetic bioequivalence study review process. The modernized BE review template resource created an efficient and productive BE structured review template with high data automation and knowledge management capabilities. User-fee programs help FDA fulfill its mission of protecting the public health and accelerating innovation in industry. The Generic Drug User Fee Program is based on the Generic Drug User Fee Amendments, GDUFA, first enacted by Congress in 2012. The fees are negotiated between FDA and industry every 5 years. The implementation of GDUFA by FDA encompasses a wide range of human generic drug activities and includes a commitment to meet specific performance goals. And we look forward to continuing our important work under GDUFA 3. The GDUFA Science and Research provides data to support the assessment and approval of ANDAs referencing complex products, which ultimately improves patient access to these complex generics that were unfeasible to develop even just a few years ago. As an example, a generic of loteprednol etabinate ophthalmic suspension is used to treat eye inflammation, was made possible with investments in particle size characterization in eye models that provided a new efficient in vitro bioequivalence approach. Without the new approach, applicants would have had to recruit hundreds of cataract surgery patients to demonstrate bioequivalence. And we also approved the first complex generic for ferromoxetol injection, the generic for Ferheme, a parenteral iron product that treats iron deficiency anemia. Our scientific investment in the characterization and advanced bioequivalence study design was essential to this approval. Beginning in FY 2024, there is a proposal for FDA's process for reviewing and responding to suitability petitions to be enhanced. Any newly submitted suitability petition will undergo a completeness assessment, receive a goal date, and receive a prioritization assessment under defined parameters in the proposed commitment letter. The Product-Specific Guidance PSG program will be enhanced through new goals around PSG development for complex products to further aid in development of complex generics, and by providing information on FDA.gov about upcoming new and revised PSGs and PSG prioritization. Other proposed enhancements include allowing certain ANDA applicants to request a PSG teleconference to obtain FDA feedback on the potential impact of new PSG recommendations on ongoing in vivo bioequivalence studies. Additional proposals are to enhance the ANDA assessment process with additional methods for FDA to work with applicants to resolve issues during the review cycle, even when this may require goal date extensions in order to reduce the number of assessment cycles and facilitate timely access to generic drugs. The definition of controlled correspondence may be expanded to include correspondence seeking regulatory and/or scientific advice after issuance of a CR letter, tentative approval, or ANDA approval. Under certain circumstances, a new enhanced mid-cycle review meeting will be available for applicants to ask questions related to a proposed scientific path to address deficiencies identified in a mid-cycle discipline review letter. It is essential that FDA's regulatory decision-making is based on sound scientific methodologies and appropriate risk-based framework that utilize current scientific evidence, and the Generic Drug Science and Research Program has delivered new approaches in many categories of complex products and has allowed FDA to build a scientific and evidence-based foundation for the efficient development of these products. So what are complex generics? Common complex generic products include topical creams, ophthalmologic gels or solutions, autoinjectors, inhalers, and extended-release injectables. A complex product generally includes one or more of the following features: a complex active ingredient, a complex route of delivery, a complex dosage form or formulation, a complex drug-device combination product, complexity or uncertainty regarding the approval pathway or a possible alternative approach that would benefit from early scientific engagement. As I conclude my presentation, I'd like to invite you to continue to interact with us through SBIA events like this one, as well as through our interactions with the Center for Research on Complex Generics. FDA and the CRCG, which is a collaboration between the University of Maryland School of Pharmacy and the University of Michigan College of Pharmacy, are dedicated to advancing programs that stimulate scientific dialogue, disseminate current insights about complex generics, and generate new knowledge in support of FDA's mission to promote and protect the public health by increasing access to safe and effective generic medicines. One way to achieve this mission is through collaborative research, training, and exchange of resources between FDA, the generics industry, academic institutions, and other groups interested in the development of complex generic products. So please join us. If you're interested in receiving more information related to generic drugs, here are some additional resources to keep you updated with the CDER generic program activities. Internal, external research, informed by industry's engagement in the planning process, clears the path to new technologies and methodologies to streamline complex generic drug development. We make our regulatory science activities and outcomes available to generic drug developers through resources such as these. You can also find our activities metrics and annual reports online. Please sign up for our listservs to get direct email outreach from us when we have updates. I look forward to our continuing collaboration so that we can together overcome whatever challenges we face and embrace the many opportunities we have before us. Now, we will test your recall on what was presented with two challenge questions. Challenge question 1. Approximately 50% of prescriptions dispensed in the U.S. during 2021 are generics. A, true, or B, false? Please take a moment to put in your response. If you picked B, false, you're absolutely correct, as approximately 90% of prescription drugs are generic drug products. Challenge question 2. Which of the following are examples of complex generic drug products? A, topical cream, B, ophthalmic gel, C, inhaler, or D, all of the above? If you selected D, all of the above, you are correct. That concludes my presentation. I'll be back on the panel a little while later to answer any questions. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you. Welcome to our presentation on the public statistics, what they are and what they mean. You will hear from Ted Sherwood, our director, Russell Storms, our boss, and David Hollvack, my teammate. I'm Bob Berger. We are in the Office of Regulatory Operations, in the Office of Generic Drugs, in the Center for Drug Evaluation and Research. We are going to cover the monthly performance report that will be presented by myself, followed by Dave presenting the quarterly performance report. Then Russell will present the work that CDER does to meet user fee goals during the pandemic. And finally, Ted will present the annual performance report to Congress. Our objectives are for you to understand what types of generic drug statistics are posted for public viewing, for you to know when and where the various types of generic drug statistics are posted for public viewing, and finally, for you to gain insight on what these statistics mean. The monthly performance statistics get posted on the activities report of the Generic Drugs Program page on the FDA.gov website. There are 35 metrics that get posted here every month. Everything from things that we receive, like new ANDA applications, supplements, and controlled correspondences, to things we send out, action letters like approvals and complete responses, tentative approvals, and information requests, and so on. At the bottom of that page are links to previous fiscal year's metrics, going all the way back to the beginning of the GDUFA era. These metrics get posted on an interesting schedule. The key metrics get posted 7 to 10 days after the end of the month, whereas the full metrics get posted approximately 5 weeks after the end of the month. These metrics help you, help Congress, help us monitor how the GDUFA program is coming along. Keep in mind that fluctuations in the data are expected. They can be caused by unexpected disasters like the pandemic to things that always occur, like an increase in applications at the end of the calendar year. Things happen. Fluctuations are expected. There are some good things to keep in mind here with this data. For example, there is a correlation between the inputs, what we receive, and the outputs, what we put out. When you see an increase in the ANDA applications, you can expect an increase in our action letters when their goal dates come up. Another thing to keep in mind is please notice that the refuse to receive actions are at a GDUFA low now. This is thanks in part to the published filing checklist, which helps industry keep track of what is expected in the applications for us to review, improved industry quality control over their applications that they submit to us, and an expanded use of filing information requests. There are some underappreciated statistics that we hope you all will keep your eyes on. For example, notice the hundreds of controlled correspondences that we receive and handle. These indicate industry's interest and expectations and plans for the future. The more controlled correspondences that we receive, the more ANDA applications we will eventually receive. The more generic drugs will eventually be approved for the market. Also notice the hundreds of information requests and discipline review letters that get issued. These go a long way to helping reduce the number of complete response letters we issue, because they handle issues that would be discussed in those letters ahead of time. We get the results ahead of time, and where things can be resolved, they get resolved. Things work out better as a result. Plus, a lot of these letters are simply happening to keep communications open and to be completely clear with industry what we are doing, what is happening. When we receive an application, we send back a letter saying we received it. You send us a letter, we send you a response saying we received it. We send you information letting you know what's going on. Also, keep in mind that there are hundreds of supplements that we work on. Work does not stop when an ANDA is approved. After that, there are prior approval supplements, there are CBE supplements. Some of these are like whole new applications. Work does not stop when the ANDA is approved. Thank you for your time. I will now pass you on to my colleague, Dave Holovac, who will discuss with you the quarterly performance report.
Thank you for the introduction. I am David Holovac, and I work on the analytics team in the Office of Regulatory Operations at OGD, and I'm going to discuss our quarterly metrics that are posted on the FDA website. These are a result of the GDUFA commitment letter, and we post them around 4 to 5 weeks at the end of the quarter. And the value is that we monitor the flow of applications and look at the approval times. Because these are only based on 4 months of data, each of these metrics can fluctuate between quarters, and they will also vary from a yearly run of the data. So let's take a look at these 7 metrics so we have a better understanding of their meaning. The first of these metrics is ANDAs awaiting FDA action. These are original applications that have a pending application status within FDA. Some of these may have received a complete response from an earlier evaluation, and some are still waiting for their first review and evaluation. The structure of GDUFA has allowed us a faster processing of these applications over the years. The second of these is ANDAs awaiting applicant TA. These are original applications that currently have a tentative approval but cannot be fully approved due to patent or exclusivity expiration dates. Throughout the years, these numbers have remained fairly stable at 400 to 500 each reporting period. ANDAs awaiting applicant action is our next category. These are original applications that have received a complete response, and the FDA is waiting for a response from the applicant holder to start the cycle clock and resume an evaluation. You will note that in some quarters we have actually more applications waiting for a response from the applicants than we have pending FDA response. There can be a wide gap in the response time between the various applicant holders. Now also we have mean and median approval time. AP in this case refers to full approval. This time is the measure of the number of months it takes to fully approve an application from its accepted filing date to the final approval date. The data is based on the first approvals only, whichever comes first. The AP or full approval or the TA or tentative approval. You will know also that the mean is the average of a group of values, whereas the median is the middle of a group of numbers. When you have a few older applications that get mixed in with a quarter, you can significantly bump up the approval times for the quarter. Thus the reason for fluctuations from one quarter to the next in approval times. Now we'll take a look at mean and median TA approval time. TA refers to the first tentative approval for an application. The same holds true here in that this refers to the number of months it takes to tentatively approve an application from its accepted filing date to the TA. Again, data is for first TAs only. If the application receives a full approval after the TA, it is not counted in the AP group. Now, be careful when evaluating approval times to note the parameters, the type of approval, the date range, and so forth. You will find data in various reports that refer to approval time, but they may combine first approvals for both TAs and APs, and they're also could be based on this receipt date cohort. These metrics on our quarter report are based on the action date cohort. Now it's time for a challenge question. One value of the activities report of the generic drugs program GDUFA quarterly performance is A, helps keep track of when the seasons changed. B, monitor flow of applications. C, provide stats on new drug activities. D, none of the above. I'll give you a few seconds to look at that. And the answer is monitor the flow of applications. Now, thank you very much for your time, and now I will introduce Dr. Russell Storms, who will explain our work done to meet the user fee GDUFA goals during this pandemic.
Thanks for the introduction, Dave. And as Dave mentioned, I am Russell Storms, the Associate Director for Analytics for the Office of Regulatory Operations within the Office of Generic Drugs. And I'll be taking a look at the Center for Drug Evaluation and Research's work that has been done to meet generic drug user fee goals during the pandemic. A link to this work can be seen on the slide. So for some background, on January 31st, 2020, the Secretary of Health and Human Services declared a public health emergency related to COVID-19, which was effective as of January 27, 2020. Along with this public health emergency, one of the challenges facing the generic drug program is how to ensure timely reviews of drug applications despite a surge in work volume and practical constraints such as travel limitations, quarantine, and social distancing requirements or lockdowns. Accordingly, the purpose of this public-facing report is to provide periodic updates on key GDUFA compliance metrics related to application review and the pre-approval process throughout the pandemic. The FDA has generally committed to reviewing 90% of applications for specified drug products within the timeframes that have been agreed to in user fee negotiations with industry. The data presented in this public-facing report includes all actions due during the specified timeframe, regardless of receipt date, which is different from the FDA's annual congressional performance reports, where performance is based on the fiscal year of receipt. As such, this report contains all GDUFA goal compliance data for ANDA original applications and prior approval supplements, and for ANDA original applications with imminent approval and prior approval supplements with imminent approval. The compliance period is quarterly and is updated about 2 months after the quarter ends. The value of this data highlights the fact that even with the impact of travel restrictions, CDER has been able to meet the GDUFA compliance of 90% throughout the pandemic when coupled with the imminent approval process. Under GDUFA, the FDA classifies an action as an imminent approval or tentative approval action if it is taken within 60 days of the original goal date. So looking at the data, there are a few cautions to be aware of. 1. the imminent approval data will always lag a quarter behind the original quarterly data pull. For example, when the imminent approval data was incorporated into the fiscal year 21 quarter 2 metric at the time of the fiscal year 21 quarter 3 web page updates, the metrics changed from 89% to over 90% for original applications. Also, some supplement data includes prior approval supplements and changes being effective supplements, whereas other data are just prior approval supplements. In terms of some tips, the best data on the impact of travel restrictions is on the issuance of a true complete response letter, but currently the best data on the impact of imminent approvals on GDUFA compliance is within this report. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to discuss the work that has been done to meet generic drug user fee goals during the pandemic. And now I'll be followed by my boss, Mr. Ted Sherwood, the Office Director for the Office of Regulatory Operations within the Office of Generic Drugs, who will be discussing the performance report to Congress for the generic drug user fee amendments.
Thank you, Dr. Storms, for turning the presentation over to me. Folks, you have heard about the monthly and 2 types of quarterly reports. Now we will conclude this segment of the ANDA program public statistics and what they mean with an overview of the performance report to Congress for the generic drug user fee amendments. First, we are pleased to announce that the Year 4 Fiscal Year 2021 report is already posted. This report is located in the GDUFA Performance Report webpage within the agency's User Fees webpage. On the GDUFA landing page, you will see the performance reports for current and prior years. The reports currently maintain the look of a formal paper report. The GDUFA report is a comprehensive document of more than 100 pages covering a wide range of information from statistical to other achievements such as workshops held and guidances issued or updated. The statistics cover everything from traditional assessment to meetings with applicants or prospective applicants to inspections conducted to corrective action plans. We will focus on the assessment performance. Please note that the yearly report contains both updated information from the prior year and preliminary information on the most recently completed year. The data is posted several months after the close of the fiscal year on September 30th. The value of this report is that it provides a great program-level view for monitoring yearly performance trends. It also contains a thorough breakdown of the impact of imminent approvals, which cover both approval and tentative approval. Under the generic drug user fee amendments, FDA classifies an action as an imminent approval or tentative approval if it is taken within 60 days of the original goal date. Similar to the other reports described in this section, we expect there to be some fluctuations in the data as receipts change and other factors influence generic drug program performance. As previously mentioned, each report contains preliminary information on the most recently closed year. This is due to several factors such as goal dates lasting as long as 10 months, extension to goal dates due to unsolicited amendments, and the need to wait for late in the reporting year submissions to mature to an action. Therefore, it is worth viewing not just the preliminary data, but the updated data from the prior report. Also note that the data in this report will not always match the data in other reports, as the performance report is designed to specifically capture data based on the cohort of receipt, while many other reports capture data on the cohort of action taken. The cohort of receipts data is the best indicator of what you can expect to experience for a well-prepared submission sent in today. The cohort of action data often includes some very old applications that tend to adversely impact the statistical results. Further, this report includes a section on common causes and trends impacting the agency's ability to meet the goals, such as the current travel restrictions. Now for challenge question number 2. Generic drug statistics are posted how often? A. Monthly. B. Quarterly. C. Annually. D. All the above. The answer is D, all the above. Thank you for listening. This concludes our presentation. I will be back for the Q&A session.
Hello, my name is Andrew Coogan, and today I will be presenting on public stats and what they mean from the Office of Generic Drug Policy. During today's presentation, I will review the FDA Reauthorization Act of 2017, also known as FDARA, Section 807 and 805. Hello, my name is Andrew Coogan, and today I will be presenting on public stats and what they mean from the Office of Generic Drug Policy. During today's presentation, I will review the FDA Reauthorization Act of 2017, also known as FDARA, Section 807 and 805 webpage. I will discuss trends seen in the data for the FDARA Section 807-805 reports, and I will also review the Competitive Generic Therapy Approvals webpage, also known as the CGT approval webpage. So we'll start with Section 807-805. FDARA was passed in 2017 and included reporting requirements for FDA to publish about the status of abbreviated new drug applications, also known as ANDAs. FDA is required to report on the status of ANDAs subject to priority review, the status of ANDAs with CGT designation, and the approval of ANDAs for which were granted CGT designation and action was taken pursuant to Section 506HC. There are other reporting requirements under Section 807 that are not going to be covered in today's presentation since they are reported elsewhere on the FDA webpage. This information can be found on the GDUFA 2 Quarterly Performance Report, as well as the Generic Drug Program Activities Reports Monthly Performance webpage. Also under Title 8, there's Section 805 reporting, which requires FDA to report on pending suitability petitions. Here's the URL to the FDA's FDARA 807-805 webpage. The link is to the fiscal year 2022 report, but the information presented in today's presentation will be from the fiscal year 2021 webpage. This is done because we are not fully through the fiscal year 2022 reporting time, and so we don't have a complete data set yet. The webpage is updated quarterly, usually in the first 2 weeks of January, April, July, and October, and it reports on the previous quarter's metrics. The reports are based on the status of the application at the end of the reporting quarter, so the last day of the quarter, and we have complete data from fiscal year 2018 until fiscal year 2021. We also have data for the first 2 quarters of fiscal year 2022. On the webpage, there are 3 tables, and the first table reports on ANDAs subject to priority review under Section 505J11. In the table, you can see the number of original ANDAs awaiting FDA action. So this would be ANDAs that were either acknowledged for filing and have been given a GDUFA date, and we are currently reviewing the application. ANDAs awaiting applicant action would be any original ANDA that had been acknowledged for filing and has been issued a complete response letter or a tentative approval. And ANDAs approved would be every original ANDA application that was approved in the reporting quarter. An ANDA is subject to priority review if it has not more than 3 approved and no blocking patents or exclusivities, the drug product is on the drug shortage list, or is another application determined appropriate for prioritization by the Secretary. And those types of products are outlined in MAP 5240.3. The second table on the webpage contains reports on CGT metrics, and that includes ANDAs awaiting FDA action, ANDAs awaiting applicant action, ANDAs approved in the reporting quarter, And it also includes information on pre-ANDA meetings, the number of pre-submission meetings requested, the number of pre-submission meetings held, the number of product development meetings requested, and the number of product development meetings held. These reporting requirements are for ANDAs that have been granted CGT designation. So previously, it was for anyone granted prioritization, and this table is for anyone granted CGT designation. For an ANDA to be included in this report, it needs to have been granted CGT designation, and there is some overlap between this report and the previous one if an applicant was prioritized as well as granted CGT designation. The next part of the table includes information about ANDAs with the CGT designation for which the Secretary has taken action pursuant to Section 506HC. Actions under 506HC, including meetings with the applicant prior to submission. So this would be, as reported on the previous table, pre-submission meetings or product development meetings. Since the passage of FDARA, we have 5 ANDAs that meet this criteria where an applicant was granted CGT designation and had actions taken under Section 506HC. One of the reporting requirements under Section 807 is to see what effect, if any, the actions under 506HC have had on the number of review cycles or the length of time to approval. And unfortunately, at this time, we have too small of a data set to draw any conclusions. However, we can say that for all ANDAs approved that were granted CGT designation and action was taken pursuant to Section 506HC, all those applicants were approved in 2 or fewer review cycles and have a shorter time to approval than the mean and median approval time for the quarter in which they were approved compared to other applicants that were also approved in the same reporting quarter. And the last slide of the Section 807-805 reporting page is about pending suitability petitions. These numbers are updated at the end of each fiscal year and are updated on the first 2 weeks of October. Some data trends we've seen on the reporting requirements for Sections 807-805. Product development meetings for ANDAs granted CGT designation have trended upwards, as well as ANDAs subject to priority review, awaiting action, and ANDAs granted CGT designation awaiting action. In this table, you can see the difference in meeting requests for ANDAs granted CGT designation since the passage of FDARA. The green line is the number of product development meetings requested, so those that were granted and denied. And the blue line is the number of pre-submission meetings requested, so those granted and denied. You can see that the number of applicants that have requested pre-submission meetings remains relatively low, whereas the number of applicants that have requested product development meetings has gradually increased. So based on this trend, we can draw conclusions that the product development meetings appear to be more popular and are utilized on a more consistent basis. On this slide, we see ANDAs subject to priority review. The blue line is ANDAs that are awaiting FDA action. The red line is ANDAs awaiting applicant action. The green line is ANDAs approved in each reporting quarter. Based on this, you can see that in the first year and a half of GDUFA, there was a sharp increase in the number of ANDAs pending FDA review, and that started to stabilize around fiscal year 2019 quarter 2. And when you look at all applicants awaiting action by applicant or FDA, the percentage of applications awaiting FDA action has stabilized and started to decline over the first 4 years of GDUFA. As we complete the reviews and get these applications back to the applicants, the percentage of reviews that are with the ANDA applicant starts to grow. When you look at ANDA's granted CGT designation, there is also an upward trend. You don't see the sort of leveling off with ANDAs awaiting FDA action that you did with the ANDAs granted prioritization. However, all three ANDAs approved, ANDAs awaiting FDA action, and ANDAs awaiting applicant action have increased since the passage of FDARA. And that moves us to the competitive generic therapies approval webpage. There's the link for the CGT approvals webpage. It contains all ANDAs approved for products that receive CGT designation. It's updated every 2 weeks, and since the passage of FDARA, we've had over 100 applicants approved for CGT, with many more requesting CGT designation. The competitive generic therapies approval webpage includes all applicants granted CGT designation, not just the first approved, so it includes anyone eligible for CGT exclusivity as well as those not. It lets you know if an ANDA applicant has been approved with CGT designation for a drug product, and the webpage provides information on CGT exclusivity, including the date of marketing that would trigger 180-day CGT, or if an applicant has forfeited 180-day CGT. The webpage can be useful for determining whether an applicant has already been approved for a particular competitive generic therapy, which would signal that CGT exclusivity is no longer available for that drug product. And this is because only the first applicant approved with CGT designation can qualify for 180-day CGT exclusivity. So in summary, the web pages that I presented on today provide improved transparency about the status of priority reviews, as well as those granted CGT designation. And the trends we've seen since the passage of FDARA show an increase in the number of ANDAs subject to priority review, as well as the utilization of CGT designation and product development meetings. Thank you.
Hello and thank you. My name is Derek Smith. I am the Deputy Director of the Office of Pharmaceutical Manufacturing Assessment in the Office of Pharmaceutical Quality. My talk will focus on information the Office of Pharmaceutical Quality posts publicly to highlight program activities and achievements, as well as contributing to the CDER public website on work during the COVID-19 pandemic, specifically where inspection activities were disrupted, creating challenges for timely application assessment. In OPQ, our work assures consistent pharmaceutical quality products are available to the public, meeting consumer expectations each and every dose. Annually, OPQ publishes a report detailing key programs and initiatives related to assuring quality medicines are available to the American public that meet patients' expectations of safety and effectiveness of each dose. The June 2021 White House 100-day report noted that the three pillars of a secure and robust drug supply chain are quality, diversification, and redundancy. To that end, the 2021 OPQ annual report discusses our efforts in creating the next generation of the Emerging Technology Program, in preparing a framework for regulatory advanced manufacturing evaluation, and incentivizing quality management maturity at regulated facilities, as discussed by Dr. Kopcha in this morning's keynote. In addition to key initiatives, the annual report discusses core OPQ functions of assessment, including highlighting new approvals, inspection, including describing the achievements in overcoming COVID-19 inspection challenges, and summarizing surveillance research and policy activities, and highlighting the critical information and impact to these activities have had to achieving CDER's mission of ensuring human drugs are readily available to patients, and those drugs are safe and effective for their intended use while meeting established quality standards. So let's dig into the data related to the generic drug program in the OPQ annual report. In 2021, OPQ supported the assessment of over 750 ANDAs and over 8,000 application supplement approvals. Within these approvals, two significant milestones were reached. The generic program reached 100 approved complex generics overall, and since the beginning of the pandemic, CDER was able to approve over 1,000 drug submissions to assist in treating patients with COVID-19. Approvals in both of these critical areas have continued to increase since reaching these milestones in 2021. In addition to the assessment activities, OPQ research supported first generic approvals of two key products that I would like to highlight. OPQ scientists studied ferumoxytol injection, a drug product that treats iron deficiency anemia in patients with chronic kidney disease. Their research helped better define the composition, structure, and size of the nanoscale particles that make up this drug product, and with this knowledge, the FDA was able to approve the first generic for ferumoxytol injection. In addition, OPQ research in the area of peptide drugs led to a better understanding of the impurity profiles for peptide products like glucagon for injection, which was marketed for the first time in 2021. Specifically, OPQ scientists developed methods to define the sequences of and quantify impurities in these peptide drug products, leading to the ability to approve the first generic. With respect to inspections and overcoming the challenges that the pandemic created in conducting inspections, the OPQ annual report highlights that the Office of Regulatory Affairs and CEDAR collaborated to develop inspection prioritization schemes and the use of alternative tools within different program areas. Some of these tools are on the left-hand side of my slide and have been pivotal in assessing applications during the pandemic. Prior to the pandemic, pre-approval inspections were generally needed to support approximately 20% of submissions assessed. Throughout the pandemic, of that 20% that generally would need inspection, we have been able to use alternative tools for facility assessment to reduce the need to conduct pre-approval inspections for approximately 50% of the facilities named in submissions. This data is summarized across all user fee programs, not just the generic program, on the website CEDAR's work to meet user fee goals during the pandemic that was discussed earlier by OGD. So let's look at that website and dig into the data with respect to the ANDA program. So the website data that you'll see displayed is across all user fee programs, but specifically for the ANDA program, in the calendar year 2021, over 350 ANDA submissions were assessed for the ability to use alternative tools for facility assessment. Approximately 160 ANDA submissions were acted upon in 2021 based on information from those alternative tools. That's inclusive of over 120 facilities being assessed using alternative tools to support the generic program. In addition to the work to utilize alternative tools for facility assessment, CEDAR collaborated with ORA, and ORA was able to complete over 35 inspections to support over 60 ANDA submissions acted upon in 2021, despite the challenges of inspection travel during the pandemic to ensure the safety of all involved in the inspection process. So what does that mean? What is the underlying data on how the alternative tools impacted? For the generic program, we saw a 42% reduction in the need for pre-approval inspections supporting ANDAs. You'll note that this reduction is lower than the overall average across the pandemic that's shown on the website, which is approximately 50%. While continuing to apply the same assessment approaches as the pandemic has continued, we have noticed that many more facilities lack appropriate inspection history, or we have determined through alternative tools that an inspection is necessary to support further approvals from those facilities, therefore decreasing the percent reduction as we have seen earlier in the pandemic. However, despite this reduction, in calendar year 2021, on-time application action was over 90% across all GDUFA submissions. Before concluding, my challenge question to you is, all of the following are alternative tools for facility assessment, except remote interactive evaluation, records requested through 70484, third-party non-regulatory authority audit, inspection information shared through the mutual recognition agreement or other confidentiality agreements with trusted partners. Take a few moments to think about the correct answer. If you pick C, that's correct. We currently do not accept third-party audits from other organizations. We would only use inspection information from trusted regulatory partners, either through the mutual recognition agreement or other confidentiality agreements. So in summary, the OPQ annual report highlights activities and accomplishments in critical pharmaceutical quality initiatives and programs, as evidenced by the drop in pre-approval inspection reduction across the generic program. While alternative tools for facility assessment have allowed us to overcome the pandemic travel challenges, they will not continue to work forever, and inspections remain the gold standard. And just to repeat, the efforts, not just in remote evaluation of facilities and inspections, but also the assessment activities, the research activities, the surveillance activities in OPQ, help support on-time action of over 90% across all GDUFA submissions in 2021. In closing, let's keep working together using the best available science to assure quality medicines are available for patients through COVID-19 and beyond. Thank you for your attention today.
Thank you to all of our presenters for excellent presentations. We'll now transition to our Q&A panel welcoming Commander Jeffrey Wu, who is the Deputy Office Director for OLDP OPQ. He joined FDA's OTR in 2010 and has served as a research scientist, science staff, chemistry reviewer, special assistant to the office director, staff supervisor, associate director of sciences and communication, acting division director, and deputy office director. Between 2013 and 2017, he served as a founding member on the OPQ Emerging Technology Team. He was a core member in policy development efforts such as emergency technology, continuous manufacturing, and comparability protocols. And if you haven't had a chance to enter your questions into the Q&A chat pod, please do so now. We'll answer as many questions as time allows. Looks like we have some questions coming in right now, and the first group of questions will be directed to Elon Murphy. And here's the first question for Dr. Murphy. How can I find out more about the generic drug approval process?
Great, thank you for that question. There is actually a Q&A style conversation with one of our panelists, Office of Generic Drugs, Ted Sherwood, the Director of Office of Regulatory Operations, for a nice overview of our generic drug approval process, and that's dated March 17th of this year. The easiest way to find this resource is to do an internet search using the terms Ted Sherwood FDA conversation, and that should take you right to the article. Thanks.
Thank you for responding to that question. We have another question for Dr. Murphy, and there's the question. When were the generic drugs user fee amendments originally enacted?
Yes, the GDUFA was originally enacted back in 2012 as part of the Food and Drug Administration Safety and Innovation Act, and that was authorized for a period of 5 years, and we are currently in the second GDUFA cycle.
Thank you for responding to that question. We have one more question that came in from Dr. Murphy, and here's the question. When will the proposed pre-ANDA and ANDA enhancements under GDUFA 3 commitment letter take effect?
Sure, thanks for the question. The proposed pre-ANDA and ANDA enhancements will take effect once Congress reauthorizes the generic drug user fee amendments, and we anticipate that'll be sometime this summer. Thank you.
Thank you for responding to that question. The next group of questions is directed to Ted Sherwood, and here is the first question. Is GDUFA fee applicable for previous approved drug products for 2023?
Thank Thank you. This is Ted Sherwood. To repeat the question, is there a GDUFA fee for previously approved applications? Yes, the ANDA program fee applies to all approved abbreviated new drug applications that are held by an applicant. It does not matter when that application was approved, only that it is still in approved status. Thank you.
Thank you for responding to that question. I have another question for Ted, and here is the question. If the preliminary data shows that FDA already met the assessment goal, what happens to the remaining applications?
Certainly. FDA keeps working on the applications still due. Goals are operationalized on an application-by-application basis. FDA assigns every application a goal date. All of the tracking and coordination efforts continue, even if FDA already met the goal. There is no ringing of the bell and signaling pens down. Our work is done for the year. In fact, because the review teams are so focused on meeting their specific application's goal, I suspect that most team members don't even realize the program goal was met by other applications until these types of reports are published. The first application or the last application, FDA never stops. Thank you for the question.
Thank you for responding to that question. We have one more question for Ted Sherwood, and here's the final question. If FDA misses the goal date on a specific application, what happens?
Certainly. If FDA misses the goal date on a specific application, the review team keeps working. FDA does not like to miss goal dates, and there are lots of tracking and coordination efforts in place to minimize the misses. However, there will always be some misses. When a miss occurs, FDA continues to work on that application. The assessment team knows that they missed the goal. There are even meetings where each discipline has to explain in front of their peers and managers upcoming and other predicted misses, and another forum where managers analyze the misses for causes and trends. Again, the assessment team is not allowed to walk away until the application is done. There is additional tracking of missed goal date data and status reporting to higher levels within the organization. Thank you.
Thank you for responding to that group of questions. We're now moving on to our next panelist, Lieutenant Commander Andrew Coogan. And here's the first question for Commander Coogan. Does the FDARA 807 webpage track applicants that were granted prioritization after the ANDA was?
Thank you for the question. So the FDARA webpage only tracks original ANDAs that have been granted prioritization. So if an application was submitted and then after they were filed had requested and been granted prioritization, they wouldn't be tracked. And this is due to the requirements under 505J11, where a PFC or a pre-submission facility correspondence must be submitted at least 60 days prior to the submission of ANDA to be given an 8-month review clock.
Thank you for responding to that question. The next question for Commander Coogan. If an applicant is granted 180-day CGT exclusivity, does the CGT approvals webpage publish the date the exclusivity will expire?
The CGT approvals webpage does not publish the date that the 180-day CGT exclusivity will expire. However, that information is available in the Orange Book under the ANDA that was approved and granted 180-day CGT exclusivity.
Thank you for responding to that question. We have one more question for Commander Coogan. And here's the question. Does the FDA have a downloadable version of the CGT approvals web?
At this time, they currently, the CGT approvals information is only available in a table on the webpage. However, that is something that could be considered in the future to enhance the CGT approval webpage information.
Thank you for responding to that group of questions. Now moving on to our next panelist, Dr. Derek Smith, and here is the first question. What are the biggest challenges to resuming PAIs in foreign countries? And does this vary from product to product?
Thanks, Ray. So, with respect to resuming inspections, the agency recently announced that we are beginning to resume both domestic and foreign operations after the wave of the recent variants. And so the inspections are conducted on a public health basis. And so if you refer to the ORA's roadmap, the resiliency roadmap to resuming inspections, you'll note that we're making decisions on which inspections to prioritize based on public health need to the programs. So that's consistent across all the drug programs. With respect to regions, certainly there are regions that have more difficult travel quarantine restrictions and requirements to get into the country, and so that does make logistics challenging. And so everything that we do in resuming inspections and planning inspections is involved with the logistics of getting into the country safely, making sure that the facility and the staff and the inspectors are safe, and making sure that we're prioritizing the inspection resources to the most critical products for the public.
Thank you for responding to that question, Dr. Smith. Your connectivity was a little off there. We're going to have our tech team reach out to you, and we're going to move up back to the beginning of the panel with Dr. Elon Murphy for one question, and try to check back in with you if we have time. And here's the next question for Dr. Murphy. Where can I find the list of generic drug science and research priorities for 2022?
Sure, you can find the list of generic drug science and research priorities on the FDA website. The easiest way to find the website is to do an internet search using the terms FDA, generic drug research priorities and projects, and that should take you to the link. Thanks.
Thank you for responding to that question. We're going to move back over to Dr. Derek Smith to see if the connectivity has tightened up a little bit. And here's the next question for Dr. Smith. What criteria is currently being used to decide if evaluation through alternative tools is appropriate for an ANDA?
Thanks, Ray. For determining the criteria of whether we would use alternative tools, we look at the risks that were identified with respect to the need to perform the inspection to support the application assessment. And if that alternative information and tools mitigates that need, then we would forego potentially the inspection. And I would also refer everyone listening in today to tune in for more details on this to Hi-Tal Lee and Alice Gontrov's talk on alternative tools and remote interactive evaluations tomorrow.
Thank you, Dr. Smith, for responding to that question. We still have a little connectivity issue, but we have run out of time for our Q&A panel. And we want to thank all of our presenters for answering numerous questions that came in. We'll now